Right, we come to the first statement. Secretary of State, Liz Kendall.
Thank you. With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement on the next steps this government will take to keep children safe online and give them the childhood they deserve. Last week, I said in this House that AI and technology have huge potential to create jobs and growth, diagnose and treat disease, transform our public services, and so much more besides. But this government knows we will only seize this potential if the benefits of technology are felt by all, not just a few at the top, and above all, if people know they and their children are safe online. We've already made significant progress on this crucial issue. The Online Safety Act brought in one of the most robust systems globally, with groundbreaking steps to tackle illegal content and activity and to protect children from harmful and age-inappropriate content. But we have long known there is more to do. My first act as Secretary of State was to make online content that promotes self-harm and suicide a priority offence. So platforms must take proactive steps to stop users seeing this material in the first place and to swiftly take it down if it appears. We have also made intimate image abuse and cyber flashing priority offences. And we've introduced an offence in the Crime and Policing Bill to criminalise AI models which have been optimised to create child sexual abuse material. 8 days ago, in response to the abhorrent and illegal spreading of sexualised deepfake images of women and children without their consent by Grok, I said we would uphold British values and British laws. That we would fast-track legislation making it an offence to create non-consensual intimate images, and that I would make this a priority offence under the Online Safety Act too. Since then, I am pleased to say X has announced it will ban the generation of intimate images of real people, something that will be carefully monitored, but which I and the government have welcomed. But, Mr. Speaker, the story does not end there. I know up and down the country, parents are grappling with how much screen time their children should have, when they should give them a phone, what on earth they are seeing online, and the impact all of this is having. Yesterday, I met with bereaved families who have suffered the most unimaginable tragedy as a result of what their children have experienced online. One of the most devastating discussions I've ever taken part in, and I pay tribute to their courage and dignity. I know that many parents are deeply worried about a whole range of other impacts on their children, the consequences for their mental health, their concentration and sleep, their sense of self-esteem, their ability to learn and to explore the online world without fear. We are determined to help parents, children and young people deal with these issues with a lasting solution that gives children the childhood they deserve, enhances their well-being and prepares them for the future. Last year, the government said, in response to the private member's bill on protecting children online, from my honourable friend, the member for Whitehaven and Workington, now Minister for Children and Families, that there would have to be further action on these issues. Since I was appointed to this role, I have been urgently considering this issue, because keeping children safe online is a top priority for the government and me personally. So today I can tell the House we will bring forward a swift 3-month consultation on further measures to keep children safe online. This will include the option of banning social media for children under 16 and raising the digital age of consent to stop companies using children's data without their or their parents' consent. The consultation will include a range of other options too, such as whether there should be curfews overnight, breaks to stop excessive use or doom scrolling, how we ensure more rigorous enforcement of existing laws around age verification, and action to address concerns about the use of VPNs to get around important protections. We will consult with parents, the organisations representing children and bereaved families, technology companies, and, crucially, with children and young people themselves, because their views and voices must be heard. We will look closely at the experience in Australia, which, as many people know, has just introduced a ban on social media for the under-16s. And we will make sure that the consultation is evidence-led, with input from independent experts. Mr. Speaker, we are prepared to act to deal with the serious concerns parents, teachers, doctors and others have about children's screen time use in schools, but also at home. Last week, my honourable friend, the Education Secretary, announced that for the first time ever, we are developing screen time guidance for children under 5, which will be available from April of this year. Today, I can confirm that we will also be developing evidence-based screen time guidance for parents of children aged 5 to 16. And while we have already been clear that mobile phones have no place in our schools, the government will take further action as part of our determination to safeguard children and support their well-being. Today, we have published updated guidance on the use of mobile phones in schools, and we've asked Ofsted to include this in its inspections because we want there to be no doubt in the minds of school staff, parents and young people that phones should not be used in schools. Mr. Speaker, I know these issues are really important for members of Parliament, teachers in the medical profession, many children's organisations, young people themselves, and above all, parents across the country. Many people, including in this House, are strongly in favour of a ban on social media for the under-16s as the best and clearest way forward for protecting children and stopping both acute and chronic online harms. They want action now. But others take a different view, saying they worry about letting online platforms off the hook, that a ban would simply push harms further underground, and above all, that it could stop children from using the positives of social media, like connecting with like-minded people, finding those who love in the same way and love the same things, and getting peer support and trusted advice. There are clearly risks in all these different approaches, which is why I believe a proper consultation and promoting a national conversation, especially with the public, is the right and responsible way forward. But I want to make one thing crystal clear. The question is not whether the government will take further action. We will act robustly, as we did with Grok. The question now is about next steps, doing this effectively and doing it together with children and families. That is what our consultation will deliver, because we are determined to ensure technology enriches children's lives, not harms them, to give children the childhood they deserve and to prepare them for the future. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Secretary of State, Julia Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Secretary of State for advance notice of her statement. What does an ailing Prime Minister do to demonstrate firm and decisive leadership, Mr. Speaker? He launches a consultation with a variety of options. And what does he do when the Conservative Party, the House of Lords, trade unions and more than 60 of his own Labour MPs line up against him on a tricky issue? Rather than take a clear position on a social media ban for children and getting phones out of schools, like the Conservative leader's done, this Prime Minister finds an unkempt meadow with some lengthy grass in it, and he boots the tricky issue right in. And we don't just need to take my word for it, Mr. Speaker. One senior Labour MP has said this consultation will take too long. Another said the immediate reaction is that this is just a way of kicking a social media ban into the long grass. Exactly. So there's a very straightforward question ministers must answer today. Is the government's apparent change of heart on a social media ban for real? Is this consultation a way of elegantly managing yet another U-turn, or is it simply a device to get the Prime Minister through the parliamentary week while the position remains unchanged? Exactly. Because if it is progress, Mr. Speaker, if it is progress, it can be celebrated. But let's not forget that until very recently, the Prime Minister said that he is personally opposed to a social media ban for children. In December, the Culture Secretary confirmed she's against one. The Business Secretary is opposed. The Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister said on the media this very morning that the government doesn't take a view. Exactly. In fact, the only senior Labour figure that we know who's clearly in favour of a ban is Andy Burnham. Yep. That's some leadership. What is the Secretary of State's personal view, and what is her message to Labour MPs who would like to vote for a ban this week? Because each of those rebel MPs is going to be asking themselves, after the Prime Minister has grand old Duke of Yorked me up and down so many hills, can I really trust him to see this through? Especially when this same proposal was tabled previously and they voted it down, just like they voted down our amendment to the Children's Bill on a phone ban in schools, just like they were told not to support their own colleague, the Honourable Member for Whitehaven and Workington, when he put down a private member's bill on this issue.
You voted against it.
So knowing where the Secretary of State personally stands on a ban, not where she stands on a consultation, not what she thinks about having a variety of options, may help ease their minds. And what are the timeline? Does a 3-month consultation mean that legislation to introduce a social media ban will be ready for the King's speech? Because if not, if MPs do not vote for a ban this week, they will not have the chance again for 18 months. Exactly. The opportunity to change things is now. How many of the government benches will take that chance? The government must have a lot of the evidence it needs. The Secretary of State's predecessor commissioned a University of Cambridge review on children's well-being in relation to smartphone use, messaging and social media. It was due to report in December. Can she tell us what the report said? The urgency is obvious. Everyone, especially parents, can see what social media is doing to children. It's not just exposure to extreme or explicit content, although of course that matters. The Online Safety Act that we brought in is already addressing illegal material and age gating, and that work is ongoing. But the harm goes wider. Social media has created an anxious generation hooked by products designed to be addictive, displacing real-world activity and undermining attention, emotional regulation and mental health. Schools and families deal daily with the consequences: cyberbullying, social anxiety and fractured concentration. China's version of TikTok, Douyin, limits children to an hour a day and promotes educational content. But Western platforms do the opposite: engagement loops optimised for emotional arousal. We welcome scrutiny of those algorithms and steps to stop children's data being exploited. But there is a simpler option, which is to keep children off these platforms altogether while allowing adults the freedom that follows. Exactly. Conservatives believe in parental responsibility. We believe in freedom for adults. But we believe too in protecting children, policing age, not policing speech. It is not to strip parents of their roles and responsibilities to recognise that the online world can be a discombobulating nightmare to supervise. It is not to be a modern-day Mary Whitehouse to worry deeply about children being exposed to images and topics they are simply not equipped to deal with. Hear, hear. This consultation also includes a rethink on phones in schools, and I see the Education Secretary is in her place, after months of her telling us that it was a gimmick and unnecessary, despite most secondary school pupils saying that phones are still used extensively. By when will phones be banned in schools, and how quickly will Ofsted enforce this? And are they enforcing against guidance, or are they enforcing against the law? Because guidance is simply not enough. We must be upfront that the challenges of implementing any social media ban are real. We support the government as it navigates them because we want this to work. But can the Secretary of State make clear that digital ID will not be a requirement to pass age verification on social media sites? The truth is, Mr. Speaker, that the internet grew as a pioneer society with consequences we're all reckoning with. It now needs to be retrofitted with very clear rules for children. They need to be protected. Other countries are taking the approach of a social media ban. Will this government in the UK do the same?
Secretary of State.
The Honourable Lady talks about leadership. Can I just remind the House that last week, when the Prime Minister and I showed strong and firm leadership on X and Grok, she claimed the issues were a legal grey area when they're not, and she compared our stance to that of the mullahs of Iran, which would be laughable if it was not so offensive. She asked whether we have published the research by Professor Orban. Yes, we have. We have published that today, and we are going further with some...
I want to hear the Secretary of State. The two front benches having this private conversation isn't helpful. Ms Kendall.
I mean, if she doesn't like me repeating her words back to him, she shouldn't say them. She asked whether we have published the research from Professor Orban. Yes, we have published that today, and I should say we have gone further with some short, sharp trials on different interventions, the impact that they may have, because I think it's really important. The evidence is evolving. We need to go faster on that, but it will not cause delay in our action. She mentions Ofsted. I mean, maybe she doesn't understand that the Chief Inspector of Ofsted has actually welcomed the new guidance today, which I think is a really important step forward.
No. I want no more, and I genuinely mean this. This is continuing from it. I just don't like... For somebody who's meant to be looking after education, I think we all need to set examples. Please, Kendall.
Mr Speaker, you took the words right out of my mouth. And finally, she asked for my personal position. I believe it is the right and responsible way forward to act swiftly, but by doing a proper consultation. And let me tell the House, my position is I will act, I will get results, and I'll deliver for the British people.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Onwurah.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I welcome this consultation. We know that technology has changed childhood. We believe it has changed child socialisation. We think it may have changed brain development, perhaps even motor neuron skills, but there is little concrete evidence beyond the individual terrible stories and, of course, the profits of the big tech platforms. And that is why my committee will soon be launching its digital childhood inquiry to examine these issues, hopefully in time to respond to the consultation. But can I urge the Secretary of State not to assume that a ban will be the answer to the challenges that technology poses. We need to make tech work for all of us now. And so can I ask her to review her department's refusal to accept the recommendations of my committee's inquiry into social media and algorithms, particularly with regard to platform responsibility, user control, digital advertising and social media business models.
I want to thank my honourable friend for that powerful and sensible question. I really welcome the review that her committee is doing. I think that's a hugely important issue, and that we see this not only about social media but the use of phones and the issues for children of the world that we now live. I think that's very important. She will know when I gave evidence to her committee that I am constantly reviewing our position on all the very important points she raised and her committee raised during their last report, and in particular that my honourable friend, the Minister who's joint with DCIT and DCMS, is actually taking forward the question of advertising, social media, digital platforms, to look at the impact that that can have, and that is a firm commitment from the government.
Victoria Collins, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last year I carried out a Safer Screens tour in Harpenden and Berkhamsted, hearing directly from young people, because for us it is those children, those young people at the heart of this. Teenagers shared concerns about extreme content pushed by algorithms, but also about being glued to their screens alongside their younger siblings. One said, "It's as addictive as a drug and I feel the negative impacts every day." Another pleaded, "Help, I just can't stop." Last week, over 1,700 parents emailed me calling for the social media ban. One mother said that social media for her two boys fills me with dread. Another highlighted how anxiety, reduced attention, online bullying and exposure to harmful content are becoming common topics among families. Parents, teachers, experts and young people themselves are crying out for action. That's why the Liberal Democrats have long raised this as a public health issue. We pushed to raise the digital age of data consent to 16, tackling addictive algorithms. referendums, we voted to ban phones in schools and called for health warnings. Now, the Liberal Democrats have tabled an amendment in the other place to ban harmful social media for under 16s based on a film-style age rating extending to 18. We also reset the default age of social media now to 16 with strong age assurance, because enough is enough. This world-pioneering approach brings age-appropriate standards to online safety, learning from Australia and preparing for today's reality, supported by over 40 charities and experts, including the NSPCC, Molly Rose and the Internet Watch Foundation. This risk-based approach stops new platforms slipping through the net, whilst addressing harmful games and AI chatbots, protecting educational sites like Wikipedia and safe family connections. Crucially, this does not let social media companies off the hook. We've had age-appropriate safety standards offline for toys and films for decades. After 20 years of social media platforms clearly prioritising profit over children, building addictive algorithms keeping children and adults hooked, it's time to take action. We don't need consultation, we need that action now. But at least in this consultation, we must look at how we implement a ban on harmful social media for under 16s, not if. I urge the government to consider a ban on harmful social media with swift timelines, addressing this growing public health crisis and action on our proposals now. Our children's future is something not to be played with.
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. I think she explains very well the views of children, young people, but also parents grappling with these issues. I disagree. I think we do need a sharp consultation on this, because there are different views, but we definitely want to act. And I am very interested in the idea of that sort of age classification. I think I'd be more than happy to talk with her more about that, because I think that we all see in our own children the different things. If we can help them cope at different ages, I think that's, and I'm sure many honourable members will raise different options, and I am, of course, more than happy to discuss that with them.
Helen Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I welcome the launch of the consultation today and the Government's commitment to an evidence-based approach. One area on which the evidence is clear is that mobile phones have no place in schools. Many schools have managed to implement a ban, but those which have not, or which have only implemented a less successful version of a ban, often speak about the challenging nature of the dialogue with parents and with children as they seek to implement a ban. And they say that having a statutory ban, requiring them to ban phones by law, would help. So can I ask the Secretary of State why a statutory ban is not being announced today, and can she confirm that it is not off the table?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. My schools, they're not my schools, but I feel they say very similar things. The Education Secretary, I know, has heard the Honourable Lady's question. There are different models set out in the guidance. The outcome for us is absolutely clear, that there's no place for phones in schools, and I'm sure that we will hear more views about that, but I think this is an important next step.
Damian Hinds.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The evidence is not perfect. The evidence will never be perfect on this subject, and that is because this is an effect that is happening right around the world at the same time. There is no control group, but countries are now acting. It's not only Australia. Other countries are moving in this direction as well, and I welcome this announcement today. There will be definitional decisions that she will need to make. So, yes, fair enough, have a consultation to get to the definition of what are social media, what counts as an addictive, compulsive design feature, although I'm not sure that was in her statement today. 12-week consultation, fine. What I'm really troubled about, though, is the possibility that then the period after the consultation stretches, as it sometimes does, in an open-ended way, and we do not get this action that we need. Will she commit to a deadline after the close of the consultation?
I've said before that patience isn't my greatest virtue. I do not intend the period before we publish the consultation or afterwards to be long in any way, shape and form. I want to have a clear position before the summer.
James Frith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the leadership the Secretary of State is showing on this issue. In Bury North, parental appetite for a ban on mobile phones is real, but so are the practical considerations when parents rightly want to track their location of their child, emergency contact and the ability to reach the children safely. Does she agree that the existence of this anxiety is not about the technology itself, but the design for use, particularly social media platforms that are shaping our children's childhoods with excessive screen time, endless feeds absorbing the equivalent to a full-time job's worth of hours of our young people's lives every week. So will the government's approach focus on shaping healthier digital environments, rewarding first-mover tech companies that lead on safer design rather than simply leaving the burden on families?
We absolutely want to focus on children's health and well-being online, and I think it's really important that we see more competition in this sector with different options being available for children and young people, and I hope by having this consultation we get that debate going, we get that action going, because it is extremely difficult for parents to manage this situation. Their worries are the worries that we all share as members of Parliament, but also as parents ourselves, and we are determined to get this right and to swiftly act.
Dame Caroline Dinenage.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The arguments here are very well rehearsed, and this is long overdue. Last year we did a survey in my Gosport constituency, and 80% of parents agreed that social media is making bullying worse for their children. But last week the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee took evidence from child psychologists about children's TV and video content, and among many of the things that they told us, they explained the learnings from Australia, that it is critical to plan for whatever gap is created if we reduce screen time for young people. There must be safe places for them to go and activities for them to use their time. So what is the Secretary of State doing to work on a cross-government basis to make sure that these issues are tackled as well?
I'll read that evidence. I'm sorry I haven't, but I absolutely will. And she's right. If children are going to spend less time online, what are they doing in the real world? And that is why our new youth strategy involved the biggest ever consultation of young people. They said they wanted something to do, somewhere to go, and someone to care. And that is why we are backing a new generation of youth clubs and youth workers to make sure young people have got the chance for dance, drama, music, sport, in school and out of school, to find their spark. We see this as about a better future for our children, and we can only do that across government, and that's the action we're taking.
Now, I think last time I was in the chair for a statement on this issue, we ran out of time. It would be really helpful to colleagues if they could make sure their questions were very short. Allison, Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Organisations such as the Molly Rose Foundation highlight that evidence for social media bans remains very uncertain and warn that blanket restrictions could unintentionally cause harm by pushing young people towards unregulated platforms, remove trusted online spaces, undermine digital literacy and indeed create a cliff edge at the age of 16. Does the Secretary of State agree with me we must take a calm, evidence-based approach to this complex issue and to make sure that the children's voices are central to that consultation?
100%.
Jess Brown-Fuller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I say this not just as a constituency MP in Chichester with hundreds of parents in my inbox, but also as a mum. A review, however short, does kick the can down the road when we have the legislative vehicle for change in the other place right now. So will the Secretary of State please talk to the Lord's counterparts and ask them to support the Liberal Democrat amendment that takes a harms-based approach?
I've got no intention of kicking any can down the road, but I do think it is the right and responsible approach to listen to different views. That is maybe old-fashioned in politics these days, to try and find common ground, to listen respectfully to what people have said. That does not mean to say we won't lead and act, but I do think it's vital those views are heard. I've got no intention of dragging this out. I want swift action and next steps. We will have to disagree on the consultation, but I'm more than happy to discuss with the Honourable Lady and her colleagues any views they have about the next way forward.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Secretary of State for her statement this morning. When I trained as a physics teacher, I saw both the enrichment that tech can provide with easy access to calculators, apps to enhance learning, and the disruption with endless notifications, distractions and cyberbullying incidents. Can the Secretary of State comment then on how she will ensure that this consultation will harness the opportunities that tech provides while protecting kids at risk?
Partly it's about having that consultation, but it is also in conjunction with the wider action we are taking. And next week it will be the anniversary of the AI Opportunities Action Plan, and we will be setting forward how much we've already achieved, but the next steps to seize the benefits of those technologies. I think particularly AI and science, this country is and should continue to be a world leader, and honourable members, perhaps not in this House, will hear more from me about this next week.
Aphra Brandreth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Families in my constituency are deeply concerned about the impact of social media on their children's well-being. And just last week, a head teacher told me schools need the government to act. And young people themselves are describing the real damage social media is doing to their mental health. The Conservative Party has shown leadership by calling for clear age limits, because we recognise that protecting childhood is about setting responsible boundaries. Parents are asking for action now. Yes. So why is the government not making a clear commitment today?
We have given clear support now by all the steps we have taken on making self-harm and suicide a priority offence, cyber flashing, our action on nudification apps, updating the guidance for schools, making sure Ofsted will inspect her out that. I understand she has her strong opinions that we should act now. I believe a short, sharp consultation is the right way forward, because families and children do really need that support. I would just say over 40 organisations this weekend signed a letter saying why they think a ban is the wrong approach. I think it's right to listen to them, because you have to lead, but you also have to listen and try and bring people with you.
Sam Rushworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As one of the backbenchers who was pushing the government in this direction, I actually feel that the Secretary of State is taking the right approach in making sure that the evidence is looked at and that there is this broad consultation to make sure that we get this right. But I would like to ask the Secretary of State what we can do to ensure that the voices of children and young people and parents in Bishop Auckland are included in the consultation.
So I'm certainly going to do this in Leicester West. My constituency is to actually hold events in our schools with parents, with the organisations that represent children and families. We can get cracking on that now and or during the consultation, and I want to hear members' views about, so we make sure we get the consultation and the questions right and then take that out into the country. You know, 10 years ago, when I was actually on the DSIT Select Committee in opposition, we had an inquiry into keeping kids safe online, and I did a big thing with my local schools, and it's really interesting. At the time, young people were saying, you know, they wanted to be online for some of the benefits, but they already saw the problems, the bullying, the harassment, what was happening to their younger children. They are savvy. This is an issue that has been going on a long time. We are determined to set the right path for the future, and I'm sure the honourable gentleman will be part of helping us get that right.
Graham Ledbetter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We should not underestimate the complexity of this issue or the potential for unintended consequences that could come from a complete ban. There is early evidence that some of those unintended consequences are already occurring in Australia. Parents are rightly worried and demanding action. Does the Minister agree that we need to listen to those parents, to young people themselves, and to the many organisations and individual experts in the field, many of whom oppose a full ban, and reach a considered but robust and enforceable position? And does the Minister also agree that the enforcement of the Online Safety Act has not been remotely strong enough, and notwithstanding this consultation, that existing enforcement must be better funded and ramped up?
We certainly intend to learn from the experience and the evidence in Australia. I hope myself and the Minister for Online Safety will be visiting soon. I do listen to the concerns raised by people like the NSPCC, the Internet Watch Foundation, the Molly Russell Foundation about the unintended consequences of a ban. I intend to look at all of those points of view seriously. But as I said to the House earlier, the question is not whether we act, but how. And I would say on the age verification issue, I'm extremely interested in what more we can do to enforce the existing law, and we will be gathering evidence on those points.
Captain Kendall.
Thank you. And I thank the Secretary of State for this statement today, acknowledging the real harm that social media is causing for children. And I know as a schools minister how welcome these announcements will be by teachers and parents who are contacting us in droves. But she knows time is of the essence. All the time we spend contemplating is time that children still remain vulnerable to those algorithms and that addiction. So will she give the reassurance today that not only will this consultation be swift, but the delivery of its outcomes be swift, and, as she just said, there will be real action to enforce the regulations that are already in place that should be protecting children today?
Yeah, I've got no desire to hang about because it's happening to children and young people now, and because the Honourable Lady would have my guts for garters if I didn't act swiftly.
Kit Malderhouse.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I realise the Secretary of State has been sent out to manage a growing political problem. Honestly, she's speaking in stentorian terms to try and inspire some kind of confidence. But really, colleagues, if you look at the statement, there's nothing of substance here at all. Which is disappointing, given that it was only last year that the Private Members Bill, of which I was a co-sponsor, which the Honourable Member on the front bench brought forward, promises were made, which are not even delivered by this. But in particular on schools, since I have to ask a question, in particular on schools, Madam Speaker, the Secretary of State, first of all, could she acknowledge the inherent conflict? She's saying they've been clear that mobile phones have no place in schools, but she's going to update the guidance on how they should be used in schools. Could she just confirm, at the very least, that guidance is going to tighten the use in school, and there's no possibility of it providing any loosening of the current situation?
If you'd read the guidance which has been published, it's about how people can effectively introduce that ban. And I would say the statement today goes further than the Private Members Bill that the Honourable Gentleman recommends. And last but by no means least, I have been focused on this, as I just said, in 2016. I've been working on this issue. So if he doesn't mind, I will diplomatically reject that comment.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I really welcome the leadership and commitment of the Secretary of State today. I run a work experience programme, Your Voice, Your Future, which encourages young people to get involved in politics and in government. Some of the participants produced a very powerful campaign called Rise Above the Rumours. It was all about how the rapid spread of misinformation online is harming young people's mental health and fuelling division. Can the Secretary of State say how young people in my constituency and across the country can get involved?
Rise above the rumour is quite a good tagline. I would suggest. I know that she will probably hold events with her schools, primaries and secondaries, get them to have the full debate, put forward their views, maybe even vote on what they want, and I would definitely look at the results.
Monica Harding.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have had almost 1,800 emails from my constituents in Esher and Walton urging for something to be done about this, and I declare an interest as a mother of 4 young adults and teenagers, and local head teachers and campaigners tell us repeatedly about the mental health issues about harmful algorithms, but the tech companies must be held to account. So if the Minister is serious about the urgency and prioritisation, then speed is of the essence. And today, the online safety network, supported by 42 civil society groups, have asked for urgent amendments to the Online Safety Act. Has she looked at this?
Yes, I have, and I'm determined to act swiftly. But I do think with different views on this issue, she will feel very strongly. Those in her constituency who've contacted her. But the truth is there are different views. They must be heard, actually listened to, but we will act swiftly.
Andrew Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I welcome my Right Honourable Friend's statement today, and in particular the action around mobile phones in schools. Harmful interactions can take place in online games and instant messaging platforms, and we need to be alive to the risk that we drive use to less well-regulated spaces and into VPNs. I'm also concerned that an opaque feed algorithm that reinforces our worst prejudices, recommending harmful content, and the mental health impacts this can have on adults as well as children. So can my Right Honourable Friend assure me that her review will look at the broader issue, as well as ensuring that young people's voices are at the heart of any consultation?
Absolutely look at these issues and make sure young people's views and voices are at the heart of this. I think it is interesting when you look at the Australia experience, they had to make a definition of what social media is. and what it covers. That hasn't been as straightforward as some might think. I think it's really important that we look at that closely because the OSA does not actually have in itself a definition of social media, so that would be one of the things we would need to consider.
Sir Jeremy Wright.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Secretary of State's already made reference to the interaction of whatever she may consult on with the operation of the current law. So following on from what the chair of the DSIT Select Committee said, can I ask her to confirm that even if the government pursues a ban on social media for under-16s, what it will not do is seek to dilute the child's safety duties under the Online Safety Act?
I think it is really important that those duties are upheld and implemented. I am very interested, I think, as I said earlier, that in the issue of highly effective age assurance measures, which are required already for some of the most serious issues, including around pornography, but whether those should be extended to other areas.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have recently met with Youthline, a fantastic mental health charity for young people in my constituency, as well as Berkshire Women's Aid, about the effects of social media on young people's mental health and their ability to form healthy relationships. Will my right honourable friend commit to listening to the views of organisations such as this, as well as Bracknell's parents and children, as she looks at the results of this consultation?
Yes, and I would urge my honourable friend to send us details of their opinions so we can make sure they are heard loud and clear.
Sarah Pochin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will the Secretary of State confirm to the House that the Government has no intention to introduce criminal sanctions for parents or guardians of children who access social media through parental accounts?
The Honourable Lady has got this wrong, but what I would say is her party wants to scrap the Online Safety Act. That says everything about reform.
Sarah Russell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Children's Commissioner found in 2024 that when she spoke to a group of 15 and 16-year-olds, 3/4 of them had been sent a beheading video. It is very possible that there are a great number of us whose children are protecting us from what they see online and not us protecting them. Please can I emphasise very strongly the importance of speaking to a large range of children from different backgrounds about this, because sadly I don't think they always feel able to make us aware of everything that they're exposed to online.
The Honourable Lady raises a really important issue, which is making sure young people feel confident and that they can have trust to raise these things. And that is our job, to make sure that nobody is frightened to say what is actually happening to them, so that, and I will absolutely commit, we won't get this right unless we talk to people from all ages, all backgrounds, in all parts of the country. And that is why I do believe that honourable members in this House have they know this, to have a vital job to play to making sure in all of their constituencies. And my job is Secretary of State for the entire United Kingdom. So I really do urge honourable members, for all the politics and show in this place, please do this locally, because then we will get this right.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, it's quite clear that social media is causing a health and wellbeing crisis in young people. Parents are absolutely terrified about the content that their children are viewing and the amount of time they're spending online. Children that I've spoken to in my constituency just a couple of months ago, 14 and 15-year-olds themselves, were telling me that the amount of pressure they feel to be on social media is profound. They recognise that whilst they feel a compulsion to use it, they don't want to be there. Will the government get off the pot with this, announce a ban? Perfection really is the enemy of the good when it comes to something like this. The evidence is plain to see. We need action, not words.
He knows what I think about why we have to do a consultation, so I disagree with him on that. But I would say he's right to say about perfection, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. It was a point the other honourable gentleman made about the evidence. And I think he's right to say, I mean, this is what I discovered, 10 years ago, before so much had changed online. Young people know some of this stuff is bad. They don't want to be doing it, but they can't help themselves. And honestly, if we were all honest with ourselves, we'd know we behave like that sometimes too.
Sir Jan Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Earlier this month in Parliament, I hosted a performance by students from Kent of Generation FOMO, a powerful verbatim play that looks at the real experience of young people's use of social media. It highlighted the impact it can have on mental health and how it leads to increase in anxiety and depression. I therefore welcome the consultation. Can I ask the Honourable Minister that can we also look into tech firms who can develop some loopholes so that the whole ban we are going to put in place will be destroyed? So can we consider that it is also looked in during the consultation?
I really just say to the honourable gentleman, the good people of Kent, I want to hear their views and voices about this. So I'm sure if we have either a separate meeting or he sends that information, I'm more than happy to look at it.
Caroline Bowden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently visited Fulham Boys School, which 18 months ago introduced a complete ban on smartphones in school. And they and Kingsbridge School in my constituency both talk about the transformative effect it has had. But the most compelling piece of evidence is that where a secondary school completely bans smartphones, the feeder primary schools, the children at the feeder primary schools are under less peer pressure to buy phones, and the age that they are then getting a phone is rising to 12, 13, 14. Will the Secretary of State commit to the House that she will not, that she has not dismissed the idea of supporting head teachers by banning through legislation smartphones in secondary schools in England and Wales?
Hear, hear.
I've set out the government's position on this. I know she wants us to go further, and I hear what she says. I think it's a really important point, though. I've had several friends talk to me about how when their children go to school, what they feel is that they're being totally left out if they don't have a phone. It is the peer pressure around this, and that then seeps down into younger siblings and children. So I think she's right to talk about the sort of the route through on that. We want to make that as simple and clear as possible for schools, for teachers, for parents, and for young people, that there is no place for phones in school.
Samantha Niblett.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in my constituency of South Derbyshire, I've recently been asking my constituents what they think about a potential ban on phones in schools, as well as what their thoughts are on social media for under 16. The one thing that was really clear is, regardless of political party, they all wanted to have their views heard. And secondly, they were so grateful to be asked instead of just having something imposed on them. So I wonder whether, as part of the consultation meetings that I hope to have, whether she might come to South Derbyshire and join me so that they can feel that they're being heard by the decision maker right at the top.
How can I resist?
Sir Julian Lewis.
Last week, as the Secretary of State will recall, some of us were loudly heckled for suggesting that X was beginning to give way on Grok. Now we know that that was true. So events are moving fast. Can the Secretary of State at least assure us that while this consultation is going on and anything that follows on from that, she will immediately instruct those civil servants who would have to prepare the arrangements for a practical ban to get on with the task provisionally so no time is wasted?
Good question.
I mean, deeds not words. I've always believed that, and I want to prepare for all of those options, because when we make a decision, we want to implement it as soon as possible.
Marsha de Cordova.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the government's consultation on smartphone use, but also social media. Raising the minimum age is the right step forward towards protecting our children, as we know that it has led to devastating consequences. But we also know that excessive screen time is also linked towards myopia and dry eye disease. So I would like to ask the Secretary of State, when she brings forward guidance, whether it will take account of the risks associated with sight loss.
It's my honourable friend, the Education Secretary, who is leading on the work on guidance on screen time use. I will definitely raise that issue with her. I absolutely believe that those issues around screen time use, not just for young children under 5, although certainly my primaries are extremely worried about that, the implications for not just language development, but fine motor skills, communication, confidence. All of those issues are important, but I will definitely raise the point about the impact on people's eyes with my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary.
David Chadwick.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Over the past year, I've spoken to hundreds of children in local schools across my constituency as part of my Safer Screens tour, and it's been very distressing to hear from them some of the material that they've been exposed to, particularly that the social media companies haven't come back to them when they've reported this harmful content. So can she confirm if she agrees that there should be a ban on harmful social media platforms with a default age of 16?
He knows I've set out that we're going to consult on the age of 16, but I would just remind the House that the Online Safety Act has very strong things against illegal content for people of all ages, harmful content for children. We need to make sure that that is effectively enforced now, whatever decision is made around this consultation.
Alex Barros-Curtis.
Madam Deputy Speaker, may I thank my right honourable friend for the announcement of this consultation. Parents and carers, families, schools and children themselves are looking for help and leadership on the issue of keeping children safe in the digital world. With respect to the consultation, will she assure me that it will cover two particular facts? One, the concept of misinformation that is levelled throughout social media, and the other, that it will consider all options that deal with the addictive nature of social media, including algorithmically personalised feeds.
I would say to my honourable friend that this is very much about keeping children safe online. I've said we will look at the issue of raising the digital age of consent and the positive impact that that could have on how companies use those algorithms and the many issues related to it. I'm of course happy to discuss further with my honourable friend, but this is absolutely focused on children, this consultation.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think many young people watching us in this chamber would think that questions of addiction and perhaps online harms are not simply age-related. But this debate does reflect, I fear, for many parents and carers, a lack of confidence in the Online Safety Act and Ofcom in particular to deal with the rapid nature of technological change. Can the Secretary of State tell us what conversations she's had with Ofcom about what more powers and more action they could take now, particularly in relation to this question of AI chatbots, please?
She will know that I have already said that I've looked seriously at the issue of AI chatbots, that those that use live search are covered by the Online Safety Act, those that share user-to-user content are covered by the Online Safety Act, but there are some, if it's just an interaction with the individual without live search or user-to-user, are not, and that I am absolutely considering how we fill those gaps. I've said if further action is taken, we will take it, and I also know that Ofcom will understand, not just from members of this House, but from the public, that the expectation of swift and effective enforcement is paramount.
Gavin Robinson.
Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Secretary of State for the statement that she has made, and can I place on record my thanks and gratitude to Rosalind McLean and Charlotte Carson from a local campaign group around smartphone-free childhoods. Can I say she is right to bring forward a consultation and engage with young people, but indicate that my parliamentary colleagues in the other place will tomorrow, if the proceedings allow, support an amendment that would lead to a ban for under-16s. Can I ask specifically, in the consultation, is she proposing a social media ban for under-16s? Is she simply asking for views as to what age a ban should be set, or is she giving options?
We are including the option of a ban for those under 16. That will be clear as we will propose raising the digital age of consent and looking at the other issues I listed in my statement. I understand the honourable gentleman's party's approach in the other place we take. We do want this consultation to happen. They will have their strong opinions, but we do think this is the right and responsible way forward, but to do it as swiftly as possible.
Yasmin Qureshi.
Thank you, Madam
Madam Deputy Speaker, may I place on record my appreciation to the Secretary of State for standing up to the richest man in the world. Whether it is standing up to acts or introducing statements on online harm, which weeks ago by the Minister member for Birmingham Yardley, it is this government that is taking protection of children seriously. And in Bolton South and Walkden, parents see the effect of social media on children. But can I ask the Secretary of State to stick to her intention to consult fully, especially with children, especially those under 16 years of age?
The government as a whole is determined to stick up for British values and British law, and I am proud that we did that last week, and we will continue to do so. And I absolutely commit to making sure the views of children and young people in her constituency, as well as across the country, are heard loud and clear.
To this statement, Simon Hall.
Because the Secretary of State's commitment and interest in this issue has been demonstrable at the dispatch box this afternoon, and we thank her for that. But could I just say to her, with the greatest of respect, if social media had just arrived in our sitting rooms 2 weeks ago, a consultation might be necessary. But the canon of evidence of the demonstrable harms being done to our young are now very clear, as is being said to all of us in our inboxes in recent days. The consultation isn't going to throw up anything that we don't know already. Still less is it going to find a unanimity of view. There will always be differences of views on a ban or not to ban. To govern is to choose. Can I urge the government to choose to act swiftly, to use the legislative vehicle in the other place and act now, because too many of our young people are on a precipice.
To govern is indeed to choose, and we showed our determination to do that last week. We will choose on this issue too, but I want people's views to be heard, and I think sometimes we need to try and bring people together. He is right. You will never get anyone to agree on anything, but I think to make sure people are heard is a really important issue. Maybe that is old-fashioned, but I do believe that's right, and then we will act, we will lead, we will decide.
Ian Lavery.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the steps to protect our children on these social media platforms. It's very difficult to see how this can be achieved effectively without further detailed checks and balances on users and essentially on the tech companies themselves. You know, social media governance is like the Wild West. It's like cyber anarchy at this moment in time, with bots, with fake accounts and goodness knows whatever undermining our fantastic society. So what will my right honourable friend do to tackle the absolute problem of digital lawlessness?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. I think we have taken steps. I think the Online Safety Act is a really important step forward. Even since that has become law, we have taken further action on cyber flashing, on nudification apps, on sites that promote self-harm and suicide. But what I would say is I am very interested in looking at highly effective age assurance measures. They are already in use for most of the serious harms for children, whether that's pornography, suicide or self-harm. That will be part of the consultation to see what more we can do, because we want to make sure the laws of this land are upheld.
Just to help members, I will be calling this statement to an end at 2 o'clock because we have a lot of business afterwards. Allison Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Anna is a child development doctor in my constituency. Every day, she sees children who have been harmed by excessive screen time. The Secretary of State says that she wishes to come to a clear position before the summer. When we come to that clear position, how urgently will change happen? How long will Anna keep on seeing children damaged by too much screen time?
as swiftly as possible. And I would say I am extremely keen to hear from medical professionals. I received a letter from the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges about this issue. We will be deeply engaging them to make sure we get this right and act as swiftly as possible.
Rosie Wrighting.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am one of few members here today and potentially the only woman who had social media as a part of my childhood and under the age of 16. And that is why I'm so shocked that the Conservative Party can come here today and act with such urgency when they left my generation to view harmful content online for a decade. Social media has defined my life, and being literate in it has shaped my career for the good at times, but it also meant that there was a language barrier between me and trusted adults, a language barrier that I fear will only worsen and widen under a blanket ban. I urge colleagues across this House, when talking about an entire generation, to bring them with us, not send a message that it's simply easier to remove young people from social media than it is to remove the harmful content on it. So can the Secretary of State assure me that my generation, the generation that followed, will be at the heart of this consultation?
Once again, my honourable friend shows the courage of her convictions and the experience that she brings to this House. I know her life in fashion has been crucially shaped by the online world, and that does provide opportunities for young people. So maybe I will ask her whether she can make sure the government hears from people like her in her generation to make sure we take those views deeply into account. We want to prevent harms, we will take action to do that, but we need to hear from young people for whom social media has given them a chance and a future.
John Lamont.
Very much. I've heard from literally hundreds of parents and teachers in the Scottish borders who want to see social media banned for under 16s. We all know that these apps are addictive and are causing serious mental health challenges for our young people. I'm now getting messages from parents who have heard what the Minister has said and fear that you're simply kicking this into the long grass. Why won't the government take action now?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his statement.
Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think my right honourable friend is taking exactly the right approach. This place is littered with legislation that turns out not to have been as good as it should have been and then doesn't get amended. And late amendments are not a good thing either. So my honourable friend, the member for Battersea, highlighted some of the important health impacts of this. Will the Secretary of State be proactively seeking information from health specialists, including psychologists like Sarah Jane Blakemore, who's a very expert in the teenage brain?
Yes, we absolutely want independent experts to feed their views in. I do think there are lots of, my career started out in the world of public health at the King's Fund, and thinking about this in a public health framework I think is extremely important. I want to hear the views of all parents and families, as actually the last speaker just said. I have said really loudly and clearly, I know people want action. I will listen to that. But I also want to take the evidence, including from the honourable gentleman, chunters that I don't care. I don't think my action over the last 10 years has ever shown that is the case. I think I didn't hear what the honourable gentleman's actual question was. I want to hear from all those involved, including from... there's many people chuntering. I have already said I want every single MP in this House to feed through the views of their constituents. I want to hear from those in the medical and other professionals because it's important we do this properly and that we get it right.
Ben Lake.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I know that the parents, grandparents and indeed young people across Ceredigion and Preseli will welcome action to tackle the harms of social media and mobile phone use. Will she confirm that given education, which is so important to implement some of these measures, is a devolved responsibility in Wales, that she will seek early discussions with the Welsh Government to ensure that any outcomes of this consultation will be equally implemented across the United Kingdom?
I absolutely recognise those points and I want to work closely with the Welsh Government on all these issues.
Jonathan Brash.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
It is clear that social media harms our children, and I am firmly of the belief that when a child is being harmed, it's the government's duty to act. I support a ban. But even the most cursory engagement with Hartlepool parents shows me very clearly there is a range of views amongst parents on this issue. Can the Secretary of State fathom what possibly could be the objection to listening to parents?
Not really.
Sir Alex Shelbrooke.
Madam Deputy Speaker. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we do have censorship on films, and those films are censored not necessarily for violent content or sexual content, but sometimes psychological content, and policing that may be difficult. So I think that when the report comes through, the consultation the Right Honourable Lady has described, it will take time to put that report together. And I think what's concerning us is that when and how could action be taken, because we'll be past the King's Speech. So if the Right Honourable Lady concludes that there has to be a social media ban for under 16s, what mechanism is that going to come into place in a short space of time?
The mechanism depends on, he knows this, the mechanism depends on the policy that we put forward. I want to do this properly and thoroughly so that we have, when we take a decision, that it works, it doesn't have unintended consequences, we've thought all of that through and we have a policy that lasts. It is really important that we get this right. There are strong, different views across the House. Many honourable members have their own strong opinions. Good. That's what this place is all about. I am trying to take the country forward to try and build consensus, but you will never get everybody to agree. Leadership is required, and that is what we will deliver.
Natasha Hinds.
Mr. Speaker, can I welcome this government's national conversation about the impact of screens and tech on our children? As part of our inquiry into children's TV and content on the Culture Media Select Committee, we've heard evidence that not all screen time is equal. So content that is for engagement, it can be beneficial for a child's development, but content that's designed for attention, like fast-paced images just bombarding children, can be harmful. So can the Secretary of State ensure that the consultation includes looking at quality and purpose of the content our children are consuming on video sharing platforms like YouTube? And can she look at what more could be done to ensure these platforms support the right type of content for our kids?
Absolutely. I was at Braunston Community Primary School in my constituency not long ago, where they showed me the incredible power of AI to help teachers with their lesson planning. One of the teachers told me it meant he freed up 30 days of his time a year so he could be present for his kids in school and present for his families at home. They were also using AI tutors to help narrow the disadvantage gap between rich and poor kids. We need to look at the quality of that screen time. So her point is very well made.
Vera Hobhouse.
Deputy Speaker, after more than a year raising the issue in this House, illegal drugs, including spice, are still blazingly sold to children online. If that is not harm, I don't know what is. What is the government doing to make sure all powers under the Online Safety Act are used to stop this appalling harm to children done in this way? And that's very much about Ofcom. And if the current legislation cannot deal with it, will she consider that a new consultation covers how to deal with this and stop this pernicious trade?
She raises an extremely important issue, and I have put on the record publicly my absolute determination for Ofcom to use the powers that it has to act swiftly on that. I've made that very clear in private as well as publicly, but I'm more than happy to hear from the Honourable Lady about what more she thinks could be done.
Mohammed Yassin.
Mr. Speaker, as a signatory to a letter calling for an Australia-style model placing responsibilities on tech firms to block under-16s from social media, I welcome the government's consultation. Families in Bedford and Kempston are very clear that these platforms are harming our children now. So I'm pleased that Secretary of State is committed to a rapid consultation, but will she also commit to a clear timetable for bold action before more young lives are damaged?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I think I have said repeatedly in this House that we need to do the right and responsible thing, which is to consult, but I don't want to hang around. But what I want to do is have the very best effective way forward and proposals that will hold and last.
Graham Stewart.
Speaker, meaningful consultations. The government sets out what it's minded to do. It sets out a model. This consultation doesn't define social media. It doesn't set out an enforcement model. It doesn't even say anything about how age verification should be done. If you don't set out your model and what you intend to do, how, at the end of the consultation, are you going to have a practical guide and a practical model to implement? You don't. And if we are to follow up with another consultation, I fear parents and grandparents in Beverley and Holderness will be deeply disappointed with the dithering and delay displayed by the Secretary of State today.
The honourable gentleman knows this was a statement. It's not publishing the consultation. I very much look forward to his views when we do.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Leave Dr. Warren that social media has become a public health emergency, casting long shadows over our children's minds, from self-harm, sleepless nights, distorted self-images, sexual images, the addictive nature. The damage runs deep. Does my right honourable friend agree protecting young people's well-being must come before digital profit and convenience? And will she commission research into the long-term side effects of social media, including cognitive and motor development, to shape policy not just now but in 10 years' time?
I think I mentioned earlier the letter I received from the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, who I believe are taking forward further work on this issue, where clinicians gave personal testimony about the horrific cases they've treated in primary, secondary and community settings. I know they will want to work closely with us on this, and I really thank the Honourable Lady for her question.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the statement from the Secretary of State. It coincides with the EDM that has been published today in my name, calling for children under 16s to be banned from social media, which is deliberately designed to be addictive and driven by profit. We've heard of the harms from across the House, which I will not repeat. What steps will the Secretary of State take to ensure any future consultation and then legislation is based on the foundations of health and safety by design? And when can we expect the legislation to come into force?
He's absolutely right that we want to make sure this is about not just safety but enhancing the well-being of children, looking not at, particularly, I think, around the issues of mental health and anxiety, and that will absolutely be at the heart of the consultation and any future proposals.
Julie Minns.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it is 20 years since I co-authored the first Code of Practice on new forms of content on mobile. In that intervening 20 years, we've seen the proliferation of over-the-top services that bypass the network-level filters that we introduced as part of that Code of Practice. However, social media does not neatly fall into a categorisation of either age inappropriate or harmful. So will the Secretary of State please commit to working with the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, who are working already to gather evidence on the harm, to ensure that our conclusions from this consultation are evidence-led?
Yes.
Final question, David Reid.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am genuinely so happy that the government are finally waking up to this issue and how serious it is, and that there is a cross-party consensus on the need to ban social media for under 16s. These platforms are designed to be addictive, we all know that. Most adults can't control themselves, how can we expect our children to? Enforcement will be the key issue, so can Secretary of State please give some views on what she thinks enforcement could look like and what she has already learnt from our Australian friends who are leading the charge on this legislation?
I hope that the action we took last week around Grok shows enforcement of existing laws is absolutely paramount. We will definitely be learning from the experience in Australia, not just in terms of how they develop the policy, their definition of social media, but also the enforcement issues. And I would more than happily report back to the House. May I also just say once again, Madam Deputy Speaker, there were many colleagues who didn't get in. Others who, I'm sure will want to feed in their views. I really do want to hear from colleagues. We will certainly be organising events in the House for colleagues to come together, but they can also absolutely contact the department to put forward their constituents' views, because my job is as a member of this Labour government, but also the Secretary of State for the country. And I believe when we get this right, it will be a legacy of which we can be proud.
Point of order, Sarah Pochin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Secretary of State said I had got it wrong, and I quote in response to my perfectly reasonable question. She did not explain in what way exactly I had got it wrong. Does she not agree that all members in this chamber...
Order. When the Honourable Lady makes a point of order, she should address it to the Chair, not to the Secretary of State. The issue she has raised is not a point of order, not a matter for the Chair, but I'm sure she can follow up with the Secretary of State outside the chamber or in writing, which brings